I ease into the recliner, stitches tugging at my chest. Fresh out of heart surgery. Breathing feels like work. Could I get a glass of water? My voice sounds smaller than I remember. Lauren doesn't move. She folds her arms, wedding ring catching the light. Brandon flicks the remote volume up 2 clicks. "We're not your servants," she says. Flat, final, like a door closing. Water. That's all I asked for. After decades paying for this roof, this couch, that television. After tuition, the wedding, the down payments, the bailouts. Funny thing about pain, it focuses you. It strips the story down to the truth you've been dodging. Name's Tom Hale, 58 carpenter widower. This is South Tacoma. The house I built, the house I kept, the house I almost gave away. Bandage burns with every breath as I push myself up. The room tilts, then steadies. I see details I used to ignore, the spare key under the welcome mat. The Ring doorbell's green halo. The file drawer I keep labeled receipts and deeds in neat stacks. Evidence, leverage, memory. Lauren turns back to the kitchen. Brandon chuckles, eyes on the screen. Like I'm background noise, like I'm furniture. That's when the anger cools. It doesn't shout, it sharpens. In 72 hours, I say calm as a level on fresh lumber. This house remembers who owns it. No one answers. That's fine, they don't need to. The clock just started. If you believe kindness should go both ways, stick around, subscribe, so you don't miss how this ends. Justice isn't loud. It's precise. My name's Tom Hale, 58 years old, carpenter, widower. I've spent my life building things that last: homes, furniture, a family I thought would stand the test of time. I live in South Tacoma, Washington, in a modest 3-bedroom with a finished basement and a yard just big enough for Saturday barbecues. I built this place with my own 2 hands, every nail, every beam. After my wife Sarah passed 5 years ago, it became more than just a house. It was the last piece of our shared dream. I promised her it would always be a safe haven for our family. When my daughter Lauren married Brandon, I let them move in. I didn't just open my door. I handed them the keys to a life without rent, without mortgage payments, without worry. I thought generosity would buy closeness. Instead, it bought something else. Lauren's 31, works retail. Brandon's 33, between jobs more often than not. They've gotten comfortable here, too comfortable. Over time, gratitude turned into expectation, and expectation hardened into entitlement. South Tacoma's a quiet neighborhood. Ethan Brooks, my neighbor, keeps his lawn trimmed like it's a golf course. The Ring doorbell on my porch has been there for years, mostly to catch package thieves. Funny how little details like that turn out to matter when life takes a turn. Last week, I was on an operating table while my heart stopped twice. The doctors say I'm lucky to be alive. Lucky? That's one word for it. Coming home from the hospital, I expected warmth. Care. A simple welcome back. Instead, I got something else entirely. And in this neighborhood, where everyone waves from their driveways, you'd never guess what was about to happen behind my front door. The kind of betrayal you can't see coming until it's already here. Generosity is a habit you don't notice forming until you realize it's the only language someone speaks to you. Over the years, I've written checks without hesitation. Paid Lauren's college tuition when her scholarships fell short. Covered the wedding expenses when she and Brandon decided on something simple, which somehow still cost $20,000. When their first car died, I bought them a used SUV outright. When Brandon's latest business venture tanked, I bailed them out of $5,000 in debt so they could get back on their feet. Every time there were tears of gratitude, promises of how they'd pay it forward someday. I believed them. Sarah would have wanted me to. She always said family takes care of family. I took that to heart. But somewhere along the way, gratitude turned into something else. They stopped asking if it was okay, they just told me what they needed. Then it became what they wanted. Then it wasn't even spoken, it was assumed. I noticed the little things first. Brandon using my tools without asking and leaving them scattered in the garage. Lauren redecorating the kitchen without mentioning it to me, then leaving the bill on the counter like it was a piece of mail I'd been expecting. I didn't say much. I thought it wasn't worth an argument. But silence doesn't buy peace, it buys permission. And every unspoken moment was another inch of ground I gave away without realizing it. By the time I came home from the hospital, they weren't acting like guests in my house anymore. They weren't even acting like family. They were acting like owners. And that was my mistake, one I was about to correct. It was my first evening back from the hospital. 3 days under fluorescent light surgical tape biting into my chest every time I breathed. I was exhausted more than I wanted to admit. I eased into the recliner, letting the cushions take some of the weight my body couldn't carry yet. "Could I get a glass of water?" I asked, voice low. Careful. I didn't even look up at first. I expected to hear footsteps heading toward the kitchen. Instead, I got silence. Then Lauren's voice from the doorway, cold and clipped. "We're not your servants." The words landed heavier than the pain in my chest. I looked at her, searching for the girl who used to bring me dandelions from the yard just to make me smile. She wasn't there. Brandon didn't even glance away from the television. "Kitchen's right there," he said, nodding toward the counter like I was some stranger asking for a favor he didn't feel like giving. I tried to push myself up. My chest screamed. The stitches pulled tight, sending a ribbon of pain up into my neck. My legs shook. I made it halfway to standing before I had to stop gripping the armrest. Lauren crossed her arms tighter. "Easy there, Dad. Don't want you making more work for us." More work. That's what she called caring for the man who raised her. I thought about the countless times I'd carried her water when she was sick, sat by her bed during fevers, comforted her after nightmares. And now, after my heart literally stopped and restarted on a table, I couldn't get a glass of water without being made to feel like a burden. That was the moment something in me shifted. The pain didn't fade, but it changed shape. The next morning, I decided to see if last night was just a bad moment. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe the words had come out wrong. I wanted to believe that, so I tested them. Lauren was in the kitchen, scrolling her phone. Brandon sat at the dining table sipping coffee like he had somewhere important to be, which I knew he didn't. "Lauren," I said evenly, "could you grab me a glass of water?" She didn't look up. "Can't you get it yourself?" Brandon chuckled. "You walked in here just fine. You'll live." I nodded slowly as if their answers were harmless, but inside I was taking mental snapshots. Exact words, tone, timing, everything. What they didn't know was that my smartwatch had been recording since before I walked in. Old habit from the job site keeps a record in case of disputes. Now it had a new purpose. My eyes drifted to the front door, to the green glow of the Ring doorbell. It caught audio-video timestamps. I'd installed it for package thieves. Turns out betrayal makes its own kind of theft, stealing dignity one careless word at a time. "Just checking," I said, finally keeping my voice neutral. "Seeing where we stand." Lauren laughed under her breath. "You're acting weird." Weird, right. I walked back to my room, heart pounding not from exertion but from clarity. This wasn't a bad moment. This was who they were now. And if that was the truth, I needed more than just water. I needed proof. The kind that doesn't wash away with an apology. By noon, I'd made up my mind. No speeches, no yelling, just a line in the sand. In the living room, Sunlight cut across the floorboards I'd installed myself. Brandon sprawled on the couch like he'd paid for it. Lauren stood by the sink, scrolling her phone. "This is my house," I said steady. "Pack your things. You have 72 hours. Brandon laughed a short bark. "You're kidding." "I'm not." Lauren's face went from puzzled to hard. "Dad, you just had surgery. You're confused." "I'm clear," I said. "And I'm done." I reached for my phone to call my attorney. Brandon moved faster than I expected. One step, a grab. The phone slid out of my hand into his. "Let's not do anything crazy," he said, pocketing it. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Give it back." "After you sit down and rest," Lauren added, voice sweet enough to rot wood. "You're worked up." I stepped toward the hallway. Brandon blocked me with his shoulder. "Easy, old man." Old man. Funny word to use on the guy who kept the lights on. My chest tightened, stitches tugging, but my voice stayed calm. "Move." They didn't. Lauren slipped to my other side, guiding then steering. Not quite rough, firm, practiced. Like this wasn't the first time they'd pushed someone where they wanted him to go. "At least lie down," she cooed. Doctor's orders. They walked me to my bedroom. The door clicked behind us. I turned the knob. It wouldn't turn. "Doors stick sometimes," Lauren said from the hall, sugary and distant. "We'll talk when you've calmed down." Footsteps faded, then quiet. I looked around the room I'd painted last fall. The dresser. The framed photo of Sarah. The window that faced Ethan's backyard. My wrist vibrated once. The smartwatch was still recording. They thought they'd boxed me in, took my phone, locked a door. They forgot who built this house, and how many exits a carpenter sees without trying. I eased the window up and leaned into the spring air. "Ethan." My voice carried across the fence. He looked up from coiling a garden hose, eyes narrowing when he saw my bandage and the locked door behind me. "I need help," I said. "They took my phone. They locked me in." He didn't ask for details. He pulled his cell and started dialing. "What's the address?" I gave it. He repeated it to the dispatcher, calm and precise the way good neighbors are. Sirens never sound fast enough when you're waiting. I watched the side gate, heard the gravel pop under tires, then footsteps on the porch. The deadbolt snapped, hinges groaned, and the front door opened to polite voices and clipped questions. Lauren arrived first with concern painted on like makeup. "Officers, thank God you're here. My dad just had heart surgery. He gets confused." Brandon hovered behind her, hands open, posture careful. "We're trying to keep him from overexerting." I stepped into the hall, hand on the door frame. They took my phone. They locked me in my room. One officer turned to my doorknob, twisted it, and felt the stick that happens only from the hallway side. He looked around. No broken frames, no raised voices. Just a tidy house and a pale man who'd been under anesthesia a few days ago. "Mr. Hale," the other officer asked, "are you on pain meds? Do you feel safe right now?" "I feel safe when I have my phone and my door isn't locked," I said. Lauren reached into her pocket, produced my phone like a magician revealing a silk scarf. He left it on the counter. We were charging it for him. The officer handed it back to me. The room shifted with that small gesture authority walking to their side. "This sounds like a family dispute," he said. "If you need us again, call." They left business cards and a warning about escalating arguments. The door closed. Silence returned. Ethan caught my eye through the window and lifted a thumb. He would write a statement. False defeat, not the end. Just a note to self: next time bring proof they can't deny. The lock clicked again after the officers left. Footsteps. Whispered plans. Then the house settled into that smug, quiet people wear when they think they've won. I opened the window inch by inch. Cool air slid across the bandage. 12 feet down to the flower bed. Soft soil. Better than concrete. I swung one leg over, then the other, arms shaking. Breath measured, I let go. The landing knocked sparks through my chest. I waited for the ripping pain that meant I'd done something stupid. It didn't come. Good. I pushed to my feet and stayed low, moving along the siding to the gate. At the porch, the welcome mat lifted with 2 fingers. The spare key was right where I left it. People hide keys for neighbors. I hide them for future me. The lock turned without a sound. I slipped inside, hugging the wall, counting the creaks in the floorboards I'd installed myself years ago. Voices drifted from the living room. TV laugh track, Brandon's lazy chuckle, Lauren's shopping bag rustle. They believed the show they'd sold the cops. Perfect. In my bedroom, the file drawer slid open on habit. Deed. Insurance papers. Old receipts with signatures that still smelled like ink in my memory. I slid everything into a manila folder and tucked it under my jacket. At the front door, the Ring camera stared back with its green halo. I opened the app, downloaded the last 48 hours to my phone, then to the cloud. Redundancy is respect for future truth. I removed the battery to stop any surprise malfunctions later. On the way out, I grabbed my old carpenter's pencil from the hallway shelf. Not a weapon, a reminder. You measure twice, you cut once. Back in the bedroom, I eased the window down to its original gap. Same view, same quiet, different odds. They thought a lock would keep me contained. They forgot who built the exits. Morning came like a deadline. I drove downtown past the rusted cranes and coffee carts to a brick building on Pacific Avenue. Suite 402 Michael Ortiz, attorney at law. The kind of office where the furniture is solid oak and the books have creases in the right places. Ortiz shook my hand, eyes sharp, tie plain. "Tell me what happened," he said. I told him. The refusal, the lock, the performance for the cops, the neighbor, the fall from the window. I set the manila folder on his desk and slid over my phone. Audio from the smartwatch, video from the Ring. Medical discharge papers. Ethan's number for a statement. He listened without interrupting. Then he opened my deed. "You didn't give this house away," he said. "You granted a conditional right to occupy. Life estate reserved to you. Care and respect clause. Breach the clause and occupancy ends." Plain English, I asked. "You're the owner," he said. "They're guests on conditions. They broke the conditions." He started a checklist. Notice of revocation. Demand to vacate. Evidence index. Process server. No confrontations, he said. We let the paper talk. "What about the cops believing them?" "That helps," Ortiz said, almost smiling. "Shows a pattern of manipulation. Elder abuse statutes take a dim view of that game. We won't threaten. We'll document." He typed while he talked. Names, dates, times. Pull quotes from the audio where Lauren said, "We're not your servants." A still frame from the Ring clip showing the hallway side of the doorknob. The timeline snapped into place like a fresh hinge. How fast, I asked. "Today, we serve notice," he said. 72 hours. If they dig in, we file. You don't raise your voice. You raise your standards. He printed, stapled, slid a pen across the desk. I signed where he pointed. The paper felt heavier than it looked. On the sidewalk, the city noise sounded different. Not louder, clearer. Justice isn't loud. It's paperwork with a clock on it. And my clock had just started ticking. Back home, I cleared the dining table and turned it into a workbench. Not for wood, for proof. I started an index. Simple. A through E. A audio. I offloaded the smartwatch files to my laptop. Date stamped, time coded. I clipped the line that mattered Lauren, saying, "We're not your servants." Brandon's chuckle after. I transcribed the exact words and printed them with timestamps. B video. The ring clips told their own story. Hallway angle, door closes. The click of the lock from the outside. Later, Lauren's door sticks, sometimes with the knob barely moving. I froze frames, circled hands wrote the times in black ink. I saved the original MP4s, then mirrored them to a cloud folder in a thumb drive. See medical. Discharge papers, no lifting over 10 pounds limit stairs, avoid strain monitor pain. I highlighted each restriction. I added the heart rate chart from my patient portal showing a spike the night they locked me in. Need help? That's not drama, that's medicine. D. Witness. Ethan texted me his statement. He saw the locked door, heard me ask for help, called 911, stayed eyes on until officers arrived. I grabbed the call log, the CAD number from dispatch, and his full contact info. One page, clean, credible. A digital trail. Screenshots of messages where Lauren called me overly dramatic and Brandon wrote, "You'll live." Bank transfers for tuition wedding car. Not to shame them, just to show the pattern. Generosity given, respect withheld. I stamped each page with a simple footer. Hale _001. Hale _002. So nothing gets lost. I put one set in a manila folder for Ortiz, one set in my safe, and one on a drive I walked next door to Ethan. Measure twice, cut once. When you build a case like a cabinet, everything squares up. No wobble, no guesswork. Just edges that meet and a story that can't be sanded down. At noon, the doorbell rang. Not a neighbor. A man in a navy windbreaker clipboard tucked under his arm asked for me by name. He held an envelope on heavy paper, Ortiz's letterhead, crisp and blue. Service of notice, he said. No attitude, no theater. Just the law arriving on time. I stepped aside. He walked to the kitchen, set the envelope on the table like a level on a fresh beam, and read the essentials out loud. Notice of revocation. Demand to vacate. 72 hours from service to the minute. He marked the time on his form, 12:06 p.m. Pacific. Lauren drifted in first, a smile uncertain. Brandon followed with that loose swagger people wear when they think volume equals power. "What is this?" he asked. "Your schedule," I said. The server asked them to acknowledge receipt. Brandon snorted. "We're not signing anything." "You don't have to," the man replied, steady as a plumb line. He left a second copy on the counter and a third taped neatly inside the glass of the front door. And then he handed me his card and a stamped proof of service. "You're good," he said. "Clock's running." He was gone before the coffee finished dripping. Brandon jabbed a finger at the envelope. "Bluff." "Open it," I said. He did. His eyes tracked the clauses, the dates, the citations. He skipped a line, went back, read slower. Lauren read over his shoulder. Color drained. Words like conditional occupancy breach and elder abuse made their way into the room and sat down with us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. 12:06 to 12:06, I said, 3 days. Brandon tried on a smile that didn't fit. "You won't throw family out." "I won't be held hostage by it," I said. "See you in court if you like." The house felt different with the paper in it. Lighter. True. I set my watch to the second and wrote the time on a sticky note by the stove. 72 hours. Not a threat, a promise with a deadline. Lauren tried first. Soft voice, wet eyes. "Dad, we said things we didn't mean. Surgery was scary. Let's reset." She slid a mug toward me like peace could be poured. I watched the second hand sweep past 12 on the stove clock. "Resetting is for clocks," I said. "We're on a countdown." Brandon chose volume. "You think papers scare me?" He planted himself between me and the hallway shoulders, wide smile thin. "We've got friends. We can make this ugly." "It's already ugly," I said. "It's just not confusing anymore." They pivoted to guilt. "After everything we've done for you," Lauren said. I looked at the stack of proof on the end table. Name one thing that wasn't my idea or my money. They tried reason next. "Rent's insane," Brandon said. "No one can move in 3 days." "You had years to practice gratitude," I said. 72 hours is generous. He leaned in. "What if we change the locks?" "You won't like what a locksmith charges to remove your own mistake," I said. "Also, don't tamper with evidence." The ring watches the porch. Lauren's shoulders sank. "We can pay something, Dad. Start today. Respect isn't a payment plan." She looked at the floor. "So, what do you want from us?" "A move-out date," I said. "A clean handover, keys on the table." They retreated to the kitchen to whisper. I wrote a note on a yellow pad. 1, offer payment. 2, threaten locks. 3, guilt. I dated it and slid it under the folder for Ortiz. Documentation beats memory every time. Evening came. Brandon accidentally brushed my shoulder in the hall. I stepped aside, calm as a level on fresh lumber. "Don't test structural limits," I said. He didn't get it. He didn't have to. At 9:00 p.m., Lauren knocked on my door without opening it. "We'll figure something out," she said. "Tomorrow." "Good," I said. "Tomorrow's smaller than today." In the quiet, after the house felt like it was exhaling. Boundaries aren't arguments, they're property lines. You don't raise your voice to defend them. You just hold the deed and wait for the clock. I set 2 copies of the deed on the table, thick paper yellow highlights running like hazard tape. Lauren hovered, arms folded. Brandon pretended not to care and then kept reading the same line twice. "You never owned this house," I said level. "You occupied it because I allowed it on conditions." Brandon smirked. "We've got the title. You've got an occupancy, right?" I said, tapping the paragraph Ortiz had boxed in red. "Life estate reserved to grantor. Care and respect clause. Breach and occupancy ends." Lauren blinked. "What does that even mean?" "It means I kept the life estate I said. I kept possession. You gotta live here as long as you treated me like family, not staff. You broke that. The revocation is in motion." Brandon flipped pages looking for a loophole he could pronounce. "This is just paper. It's the kind that moves sheriffs," I said. I held up the stamped proof of service, the recorder's receipt number, the evidence index. "Paper is how roofs stay on in wind." Lauren's voice thinned. "Dad, you never told us any of this." "I told you the part that mattered," I said. "This is my home. Respect was the rent. You stopped paying." Brandon tried a new angle. "We'll fight it. Then you'll fight the clause you signed and the clock you heard read aloud," I said. "And the audio where you said, 'You'll live,' while you locked my door from the hallway." He swallowed, jaw tight. The word "locked" hit the room like a stud finder, a beep where the beam runs. Lauren picked up the second copy, tracing the highlight with her finger. "So, even if we wanted to fix this, you can't fix a cut after the board's already split," I said. "You measure before you saw." You didn't. Silence settled. Not piece structure. The kind that comes when weight finally sits where it belongs. "The house remembers who owns it," I said. 72 hours was kindness. The law is the rest. I set a manila folder on the table and opened it like a door to a room they'd never entered. First page, a beneficiary statement with Sarah's name in neat blue type. 20 years of premiums. A payout that arrived 6 months after the funeral. The wire that became the down payment on this roof. Lauren touched the edge of the paper as if it might burn. "What is this?" "Your mother's last safeguard," I said. "She paid for security so we would take care of each other. I used it to buy this house. I promised her it would be a home, not a favor. Brandon cleared his throat. We didn't know. I know, I said. Ignorance explains a mistake. It doesn't excuse contempt. I slid over the closing statement the bank record the first property tax receipt with my handwriting across the top. The paper smelled faintly of toner and cedar, like the shop after a good cut. Every board in here sits on something Sarah gave up to protect us. Lauren's ring clicked against the table. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to feel welcome, not guilty, I said. Because I believed kindness would be enough of a map. She stared at the figures as if numbers could rewrite days. Dad, I'm sorry. You didn't just disrespect me, I said, voice steady. You treated your mother's sacrifice like scrap. Brandon bristled, then deflated. We can fix this. You can learn from it, I said. The rent here was respect. Payment stopped. Silence spread honest and heavy. In it, the house felt different, less like real estate, more like a promise, finally spoken out loud. I stacked the document, squared the corners, and set Sarah's photo on top. This isn't revenge, I said. It's alignment. A home should honor the hands that built it and the heart that paid for it. No one argued. The clock kept moving. 72 hours passed like a slow saw through hardwood. No drama at the end. Just cardboard tape and the sound of drawers closing for the last time. Brandon walked the final box to the car without meeting my eyes. Lauren followed suitcase rolling over the threshold she had crossed 1,000 times without thinking. They stood by the coffee table a moment longer than they needed to. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been in years. Lauren set the keys down on the wood I'd sanded last fall. Metal on grain. A small sound, but it carried. These belong to you, she said. I didn't move. I didn't need to. They always did. Brandon cleared his throat like he was going to argue, then didn't. He pressed his lips together, nodded once, and stepped outside. Lauren paused in the doorway. I'm sorry, she whispered. I let the words sit where they landed. Apologies are promises in past tense. Time will find out if they hold. The door shut. Tires rolled away. Silence filled the rooms, steady and clean. I changed the code on the lock. I filed the proof of service with Ortiz and scanned one more copy for the safe. Then I walked the perimeter like I used to, after a long day in the shop, checking the line of the fence, the swing of the gate, the porch light I rewired myself. On the mantel, I set Sarah's photo back where it belonged. The frame faced the room, not the wall. The air in the house felt level again. Not triumphant, true. There is a kind of peace that arrives only after you choose a boundary and keep it. I sat on the porch as evening came on. Lights blinked on up and down the block. Somewhere a dog barked and then stopped. Justice didn't roar, it settled. And the house remembered who owns it. I slept that night with the windows cracked and the house breathing easy again. No alarms, no footsteps in the hall, just the kind of quiet you earn. In the morning, I brewed coffee and walked room to room not to check for damage, but to remember what stayed the table. I built the doorway, nicked by a careless toolbox, the son that still finds the same corner at 9. They tried to make me small in my own home. They locked me away after surgery. I outsmarted them in the end, and I took my home back. Kindness didn't fail me. Confusion did. I mistook giving for surrender and silence for peace. The shop taught me better measure twice cut once. If something is out of square, you don't yell at the lumber. You fix the line. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're joinery. They hold weight. They keep a structure honest. When family forgets that love doesn't mean letting the whole frame twist, Love means setting the brace and leaving it in. Ethan waved from his yard as he headed to work. I raised my mug. Good neighbors, good documents, a good lesson late but durable. I sent Ortiz a final thanks and filed the last receipt. Then I sat back on the porch and let the day settle on the boards like new varnish, then even true. If cold justice speaks to you, stick around. I tell stories like this because a lot of men don't say the quiet part out loud until it's too late. Tap, subscribe if you want more true-to-life revenge stories. Clear boundaries, calm decisions, consequences that fit. And tell me this in the comments straight, what boundary would you never let family cross? What line once drawn stays drawn? I'll read every one. Maybe your line helps the next man cut his straight.